What's up, Dragon Brood? To wrap up this series, we're going to be taking a look at the artifacts and land cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. There should be a lot of good stuff to look at here, and we are just going to be covering the mythics and rares. And as a reminder, this is kind of the first blush we have with a lot of these, and we're going to be looking at what they can do in standard and any other fun stuff we come up with. Let's go get to those cards. Chimmel the Inner Sun. Is Chimmel? I'm probably pronouncing. Is that even on the list? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong too. Chimil. Okay, that makes sense. So I was saying it wrong. There you go. See, that's why I'm glad I have this pronunciation guide. Chimil, the Inner Sun. 6 colorless. For a legendary artifact. Spells you control can't be countered. Awesome. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5. Whoa. Yeah, just getting a free card that costs 5 or less every turn. This card's going to end up being a ton of money. A bunch of commander decks are going to want this card. Seriously, like this card's really good. Oh my gosh, please tell me this is in there. It is. It's Motzal Antli. Motzal Antli. Oh, wow, that's crazy. Motzal Antli, the Great Door. 3 colorless, legendary artifact. Draw a card, then discard a card. Pay 4 and tap it to transform this. Activate only if there are 4 or more permanent types among cards in your graveyard. And it turns into the Core. Add X mana of 1 color where X is the number of permanents in your graveyard. I mean, drawing and discarding's cool. You have to kind of fill up the graveyard a little bit and get to flip it, but then you get extra mana. There's probably something busted somebody's going to do with this, but I'm not as excited about this as I am some of the other cards we've seen of this set so far. The Millennial Calendar. For 1 mana, it's a legendary artifact. Whenever you tap or untap more permanents, or 1 or more permanents. No, it's just whenever you untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on the calendar. You can pay 2 and tap it to double the number of time counters on the calendar. When there are 1,000 or more time counters on the calendar, sacrifice it, and each opponent loses 1,000 life. This is... what are we doing with this card? Seriously. Like, I mean, it's cute, and I get what we're trying to do. It's millennial, 1,000. I mean, okay, let's say I'm playing some token deck, and I have like 6 or 7 tokens, right? So, I attack. Next turn, I play the Millennial Calendar. I untap. I'm putting, let's say, 6 counters on this thing. I mean, I guess it counts all permanents. So I guess I could just tap lands for nothing just to untap them. So maybe you're putting like 7, 10 counters on this thing. And then you pay 2 and tap it. So it goes to 20. I mean, I guess it's possible you could get it to 1,000 without a ton of work. I mean, obviously, this has to sit on the battlefield for probably like at least 5 or 6 turns to get you there. But it's doable. It's kind of crazy, but it's possible. It's wild. I don't know if that's going to be like, if you just want to have a different win condition, sure. I'm not going to call this card good, but it is possible to do what it's trying to do at least. It's just kind of crazy. Tarian Soul Cleaver. That's a very pretty piece of art. 1 mana equipment. Legendary artifact. Creature has vigilance. Whenever another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on an equipped creature. Wow. Equipped for 2. You know, if you're playing something with treasure, this could be really good. Another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard. So even like token decks are going to like this. Ooh, this is a strong card. This is a strong card. I dig this. I'm into it. We have Threefold Thunder Hulk. 7 mana for a gnome. It enters with 3 counters on it, so you'll get a 3/3. Whenever this enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a number of +1/+1, number of 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature tokens equal to its power. Then you can sacrifice another artifact to put a +1/+1 on this card. So, pay 7. You get a 3/3, and then you get 3 gnomes, right? Whenever this enters the battlefield or attacks, create a number of 1/1s. So you get this, so you get a 3/3 and 3 1/1s. You can pay 2 to sacrifice a 1/1. Well, I mean, I guess technically on the next turn, you could just pay 6 and sacrifice all 3 of the gnomes you made. Turn this into a 6/6, then you attack, you make 6 more gnomes. So this is just a gnome machine in and of itself. It's literally like, get your dudes, then every time this attacks, you just get a bigger, it's like it's reassembling into bigger dudes and then breaking down into more dudes. Or more stuff's coming out and then just piling up on the Thunder Hulk or whatever. But yeah, this is a weird card, but it's like a 1-card army, which is kind of cool. Weird, but cool. The Throne of the Grim Captain. 2 colorless for a legendary artifact. Tap it, mill 2 cards. You craft with a dinosaur or merfolk, a pirate, and a vampire. So one of each of the major types. You get the Grim Captain himself. Legendary creature, skeleton, spirit, pirate. It's a 7/7 with menace, trample, lifelink, hexproof. Whenever this attacks, each opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent. Then you may put an exiled creature card used to craft this onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. Weird. Alright, so you'd have to build something, first off, that cares about having a dinosaur, a merfolk, a pirate, vampire. Either in play or in the graveyard. Then you get the thing on the backside, which is nice because it does have hexproof. And it only costs 4 mana. So that's pretty cool. It does have lifelink, trample, menace. That's all good. And then anything you sacrificed, you get to put one of those into play as well. And your opponent loses it. There's a lot going on with this card. And it doesn't feel great. I'm not going to lie to you. This feels like this takes way too much work in the deck building phase to make this work. Now, that being said, maybe there is a world where there's like 2 or 3 playable dinosaurs that don't care about other dinosaurs, and 2 or 3 merfolk that don't care about other merfolk, or whatever, right? And if they're just good cards independently, maybe you can build a deck around that and play like 3 copies of this. But without that, I think it's going to be very difficult. And we have Treasure Map, which is also a reprint. So it's an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, scry, put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. If there are 3 or more, you remove those counters and you transform it. And the backside is tap a colorless or sacrifice a treasure, draw a card. Obviously, this fits several different types of decks, just getting to scry every turn, getting to use treasure for stuff. Like, nothing really to complain about there. What else do we got? Cavern of Souls. This card, just good. The set is based around 4 creature types, but we do have other creature types that are still standard legal that'll want this card. This card's been good in Magic for a long time. It's going to continue to be good. It's going to bring the price down because I believe these were going for something like $50 or something. They're going to come down to probably around $25, $30, so that's great. Card's just solid. You choose a creature type. Whenever you cast something, if you use mana from this, the card can't be countered. If you're worried about the mono blue control decks you've been seeing, or the Azorius control countering your early creatures so you can't get on board, if you're playing a creature themed deck, get your 4 Cavern of Souls. Continuing on here with Echoing Deeps, it's a cave. Caves are a thing in this set. So you may have Echoing Deep enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land card in a graveyard except it's a cave, in addition to its other types. The interesting thing about this card is it does enter as a copy of any land in a graveyard, not just yours. So if your opponent has, I don't know, in an older format, something like, trying to think of something like Wasteland or something, right? Like you could copy that and then be able to destroy something or whatever. So some cool things you could do with this. Probably going to be much better than I think it is, but it's not bad. Being able to copy a land, especially if you have lands of your own that you're sacrificing and drawing cards and doing stuff with, like, could be very useful. Like, hard to complain about this type of card, for sure. So we're finishing the 2 color cycles. We had enemy colors before, now we're getting all the friendly colors of creature lands. So Restless Anchorage, which, by the way, I saw the artwork from a couple of these where they all have the animal that they make in the artwork, which is pretty cool. So here, you get to tap for a blue or a white, and you pay 3. It becomes a 2/3 white and blue bird creature token, or white and blue bird creature with flying, and it's still a land. Whenever it attacks, you get to make a map token. Restless Prairie, same thing, but it's green. However, it does make a llama, which is really funny. 3/3 green white llama creature token. It's still a land. When it attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Because Restless Reef taps for blue or black, you can pay 4 till end of turn. It becomes a 4/4 shark, which is pretty cool. I was like, can you see the shark? But yeah, the shark's there, kind of in the back hanging out. Turns into a shark with Death Touch, and whenever it attacks, target player mills 4 cards, which is cool because, again, you could mill yourself for any of the stuff that cares about having stuff go to your graveyard, which is pretty nice. So, like that one. Restless Ridge. This is one I think that if there was a deck that needed one of these the most, it's probably the Gruul aggro decks because they didn't have a real option. But this taps red or green, pay 4, it becomes a 3/4 dinosaur creature, which is cool because if you have stuff that cares about dinosaurs. Also, sweet art. Looks like the dinosaur's like sleeping over a mountain. And then Restless Vents. Taps for black or red, only activates for 3. Becomes a 2/3 black and red insect creature with menace that's still a land. And when it attacks, you can discard a card. If you do, draw a card. This one's actually really cool. For the hyper aggro decks that are just emptying their hand, or even stuff that gets later in the game, you just get to filter those cards out, find a better card on top. Like, I dig it. It's pretty cool. Sunken Citadel. Enters the battlefield tapped. As it enters, choose a color. Add 1 mana of the chosen color. Or you can tap 1, add 2 mana of the chosen color. Spend that mana only to activate abilities of land sources. So if you have other lands that need stuff, this is actually not too bad. This is obviously a filler card for some very specific decks, trying to activate caves, do all that type of stuff. But yeah, not a bad card. Just won't see a ton of play, I wouldn't imagine, because it's kind of made for a very specific type of deck. All right, so getting into the gold cards, we get to start with Abuelo, Ancestral Echo. Colorless, blue, white, 2/2 spirit, flying ward 2. So that's always good. It can protect itself a bit. Ward 2 is awesome. You can pay 3 mana, exile another target creature or artifact you control, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You know what's funny? We already have a blink deck, or bounce deck, or whatever you want to call it, a blink deck, that already exists in standard, right? That you play something like your Steel Seraph as a 3/3, it comes back into play as a 5/4, right? This is already a thing. This is just an extra copy of, like, you could just play this, and then you just have a free run to bounce your stuff. The other fun thing, too, is this does only say things you control. So you can't get too out of control with it. But the fact that you can use it multiple times in a turn is also really cool. If you have a bunch of mana, you could also save things from getting exiled. So, because it returns them at the beginning of the next end step. So if an exile trigger is going to happen, like, you can save a big thing or 2, and then they come back during the end step. So that's pretty sweet. So, like, lots of interesting little things you can do with this card. It is legendary, so you can't go too crazy. Amalia, Benavides Aguilar. Vampire Scout, legend, 2/2 for 2 mana. Not bad. Has ward, pay 3 life. We always like that. Whenever you gain life, this card explores, then destroy all other creatures if its power is exactly 20. I'm trying to think what scenarios are going to occur where this card is going to get to 20 and I've not won already. Now, just being able to, like, explore every time you gain life, great. Like, this can go into life gain decks, various vampire decks, stuff with lifelink. Obviously, still a good ability. I almost feel like that extra line of text almost isn't going to matter better than 99% of the time this card sees play. I mean, I guess you can infinite combo with something. I mean, that's always a thing, but realistically, if I can infinite combo, there's a bunch of ways I can infinite combo. Like, I'm just looking at this card itself and just being like, how often is that other line of text really going to matter? The Ancient One. All right, 2 mana, 8/8. This obviously has to have a downside. Descend 8. The Ancient One can't attack or block unless there are 8 or more permanents in it. There it is. Like, there's the catch. 2 colorless, blue-black, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a card this way, target player mills cards equal to its mana value. Okay, this does something. So you play it just basically almost like an enchantment of sorts. then you can draw a card and discard, and you're either milling yourself or your opponent, I guess. And then once there are 8 things in your yard, then it just becomes an 8/8 you can fight with. All right, I don't hate this. Like, it's weird because it's susceptible to all the things that kill creatures. It's not like the other gods that are non-creatures until they hit their trigger, right? Because they were all devotion based. So this one's a little weird that it is still susceptible to all of the creature things while effectively not being able to do creature stuff. Anim Bakal, 1000th with the TH, 1000th moon. Colorless red-white for a 1/2 human soldier. Whenever you attack with one or more non-gnome creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on this card, then create X 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on this card. So whenever you attack with any number of not gnomes, you can put a counter on this, and then you make that many gnomes. So what I like about this card is that it doesn't have to attack to trigger itself. It's just when anything else attacks. This could find its way into some type of human or soldier deck, for sure. And then you're just building a bigger army around your aggressive creatures. The downside is, though, you are paying 3 mana for a 1/2. Technically, I guess, for a 2/3, because you're probably going to attack with something the turn you play it. And then you're kind of building up a creature you could fight with, but also just being able to build up the other things around it. The Belligerents, 2 colorless, red and a white for 5/5. It's a vehicle, cruise for 3. Whenever the belligerent attacks, create a treasure. Until end of turn, you can look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. This doesn't feel as exciting as the other vehicles we've talked about so far in these reviews. It doesn't do anything when it comes into play, like the others do. It creates a treasure, which is nice, and can make it easier to play the cards on top. It also has a higher crew cost of 3. Yes, if there's some pirate creature deck that really cares about treasure and whatnot, then this probably can make the cut. But I'm not excited about, like, the other ships I felt way more interested in. Like, they have more immediate game impact, they're cheaper to crew, like, just lots of other benefits. Maybe just getting to play that extra spell at the top will be enough to make it worth it. What else do we have here? Deep Fathom Echo, 2 colorless, green blue for a 4/4. Merfolk Spirit. At the beginning of a combat on your turn, Deep Fathom Echo explores. Oh, just straight up explores. All right. You may then you may have it become a copy of another creature you control until end of turn. Oh, cool. So it's a 4/4 for 4 that at the beginning of combat is gonna explore no matter what, and then it can copy something else. This is kind of a cool card. Like, it's weird because it's very simple in the fact that it's a 4/4 for 4, but then it's just all upside, right? You get to scry or explore every turn. So you're either going to put a land into your hand or put a +1/+1 and then get the better of, decide if you want that card or not. But then if you have a better creature, you just copy that, or something else that triggers when it attacks, right? You can copy that. So, like, yeah, this one's cool. I don't know where this goes, other than obviously the deck that wants to explore a lot. But yeah, it's just a cool card. Oh, Gashath, Sun's Avatar. Sure. 5, a red, a green, and a white. So 8 mana for a 7/6. Vigilant, Trample, Haste. Whenever it deals combat damage, reveal that many cards from top of your library, put any number of dinosaurs into play. Obviously, this card's good. It's been people's commander for years. It's just one of those things. Like, if your opponent connects with this, you're in trouble, right? Now, I will say, I have played against somebody in Commander and had them hit 0 and had somebody else hit 1. So it's possible. In 60 cards Magic, though, very unlikely if your opponent's playing or if you're playing a dinosaur deck that you're not going to hit at least 2 things out of those cards. But yeah, just really, really good stuff. And it's haste for 7. So, I mean, you're ready to bang right after something bad happens. Rebuild that board in 1 hit, right? So, very cool card. Not a lot to say about this one. It's existed before. It's a reprint. Kellen, Daring Traveler. Is this the same Kellen that was the red card with Adventure from the last set? I think it's the same character. Colorless and a white for a 2/3. When Kellen, Daring Traveler, attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you put it into your graveyard. Has a adventure side, which is Journey On. For 1 green, you create X map tokens where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. So you're going to make at least 1 map token, or in a one-on-one game, possibly 2 map tokens. But you have to attack with this to get other things off the top of your... But it's such a small creature to attack with to maybe get something else. Maybe you're mostly playing this in a green-white humans deck, and then you're just getting the benefit of getting the map tokens to scry. Or, I mean, keep saying scry. It's kind of like scry. But explore. Or you just attack with it as a 2/3 body, and you maybe get another creature into your hand. Because a lot of the white aggro decks, or green-white aggro decks right now, are playing mostly cheap creatures. So very likely you hit something. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's a fine card. If not exciting, it's just kind of okay. Molten Collapse. A green and a black for a red and a black for a sorcery. Choose 1. If you descend this turn, you may choose both. If you've already descended this turn, you may choose both instead. Basically, if a permanent went to your graveyard in any way, shape, or form, you get to destroy target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. So you, no matter what, get to destroy a creature or a planeswalker for 2 mana as a sorcery, or you get to destroy a non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Or you get to do both if something went to your graveyard. This is just solid all the way around. I don't think there's anything to really complain about on this card. Like, this is our planeswalker for the set, Quintorius Khan. Like, so far, every version of Quintorius has just not been good enough. So let's see if the planeswalker is. 3 colorless, red-white for 4 loyalty. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, this card deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. Alright, so it works with adventures and stuff, obviously. +1, create a 3/2 red-white spirit creature token, which doesn't fly, but it's a 3/2 spirit. -3 to discover, which basically lets you flip until you find something that costs 4 or less. Or you can -6, exile any number of target cards from a graveyard, and then you add a red mana for each card exiled this way, and then you may play those cards. This at least has real stuff going on. At worst, you're paying 5, getting a 5 loyalty planeswalker and a 3/2 creature. Not stellar, but not bad. Then, if you end up exiling a graveyard later, 2 turns from then, you get access to all those cards, and you get red mana for each of those cards. So there's some upside here. I don't hate this. This works with a lot of different cards and a lot of different decks. And we got another Saheeli. Saheeli, the Sun's Brilliance. 2 mana, so red-blue for a 2/2. Human Artificer, legendary creature. Red and blue, tap it. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact you control. Except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sacrifices at the beginning of the next end step. So basically, another version of what a lot of the Saheeli stuff can do. But you make a token, copies any other artifact or creature you control. This is probably just solid in general, right? Anything that has an enter the battlefield trigger is cool. Anything that pumps your other creatures or whatever is going to be neat. Well, there's lots of cool stuff you could do with this. There's a few decks I could think, or even just copying certain artifacts that have triggered abilities would be fine, right? It's a small creature, 2/2 for 2, so, you know, obviously susceptible to everything. But the upside is actually pretty high on this, so I don't mind that at all. Sovereign, oh, this is another one I have to consult our pronunciation sheet, because this one was definitely in there. Because I pronounced, oh, it's Ohau. That's how, Okinek Ohau is how you say this. All right. So Sovereign Okinek Ohau. Because for some reason I thought I had that wrong when I said it previously. But that is what that is. It is 4 mana, so 2 green, white for a 3/4. Cat Noble legendary creature, Ward 2. Which again, we like Ward 2 because it's hard to kill things. Whenever this card attacks, for each creature you control, with power greater than that creature's base power, Put a number of +1/+1 counters on that creature equal to its difference. Okay, so this reads weird, but to clarify what this does, if you have a 2/2 that has a +1/+1 counter on it, when you attack, that will get an additional +1/+1 counter because the difference of 3 minus 2, which is its base power, is the number of counters you get. On the next turn, because you'll be attacking now with a 4/4, it will be 4 minus 2 is 2, so it gets 2 additional counters, basically doubling your counters every turn. Or if you have something increasing your creature's power and toughness, just in general, it gets bigger, and then you just keep doubling counters after that. So that's how what this card means when you read it. It's a lot of weird words, but that's what it's trying to say. It's written in very particular Magic speak, but that is what it does. This card's actually really cool. You can play it in the +1/+1 counters deck, obviously. You can play it in any type of just aggro deck that has anything that's pumping your creatures. Like if you have the white adversary that's pumping your team, and then you play this in attack, that counts. So like lots of cool stuff you can do with this card. This is going to lead to a lot of dead opponents sometimes on one big attack step. Squirming Emergence. This is a really cool piece of art. Is that like a squid or something? Octopus living inside of a skull? Like, that's weird. But anyway, it's a colorless black-green sorcery. Return to the battlefield. Target non-land permanent card in your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Okay, so it's just a reanimator spell that returns something less than the number of permanents you have in your graveyard. Alright. I mean, it's good, but not crazy. What I like about it, though, is it is only 3 mana, right? Whereas, because I was going to say, like, we have a bunch of reanimator type cards right now in black and green, but that does make a difference. If you're doing some type of self-mill stuff or whatever, being able to get something back for just 3 mana is pretty sweet. Veto. Oh, we remember Veto from, what was it? Core Set 2020, maybe? When Veto was around, maybe 2019. But Veto, Fanatic of Ixalan, is 2 colorless, white-black, 4/4 vampire demon with flying. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you gain 2 life if it's the first time this ability resolved this turn. If it's the second time, each opponent loses 2 life. And if it's the third time, create a 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. Cool. Yeah. Nothing wrong with this. I mean, I don't know how many things you're going to have that sacrifice stuff, but if you're playing vampires, it's the upper end. You know, it's a 4/4 flyer. Nothing wrong with that. If you have any things that are efficient and letting you sacrifice stuff, then you get to gain life or drain your opponent, so that's cool. Don't know how often you're going to sacrifice 3 things in a turn and get a vampire demon, but cool to just have that option as upside. It's like, yeah, just a good card. I don't know how often in 60 card, maybe in Commander, but normally in 60 card decks, you're going to get to use that ability to its fullest. But even just gaining a couple, your opponent loses a couple, probably still fine if this thing's surviving and attacking as a 4/4 flyer anyway. Whale of the Forgotten. Blue and a black, descend 8. You choose 1. If there are 8 or more permanents in your graveyard, as you cast a spell, you choose 1 or more. So at its basics, you will get to return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Target opponent discards a card. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Yeah, this card's good. Just the versatility of being able to bounce a thing, make somebody discard, or get your best card of your top 3. And you get to fill the graveyard. So you're going to make it easier for your other stuff with Descend or whatever to trigger. If you're playing a Descend deck, obviously this is going to be great in there. This could just be a decent mid-rangey blue-black card that has real upside. Good card, not crazy, but very good quality in general. That's going to do it for this video, but if you want to check out more cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, check out one of these next videos. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll catch you next time.